Okay, I'm waiting for him to open one of these machine shop doors. I didn't know before I came up here though that they don't do just machine shop work. It's really cool. He's like, hey, we'll do that for you, don't worry. But normally that's not something they do. And I didn't know that, so super cool guys, man. This is the place to go. Welcome back to the Roadside Rescue YouTube channel. Well, as you already saw in this episode, I'm gonna make my way up to Dave's and finally get him to look at some stuff so I can get this Cummins all the way built. This was actually a multi-day process. I took one day of just looking at the block again and making sure everything was ready and looking at crank over. I found some concerning things, but on both the crank and the block, I got the stuff on the block fixed enough that I'm willing to go forward with this. So let's go ahead and take a look at what I found. All right, that hood's super heavy. Every time I take it off, I'm worried I'm gonna tweak my back, but I try and be careful. I'll tell you what gene I didn't inherit from my dad though was being afraid to roll things over extension cords. I'm gonna get a ton done in this video. Like I said, I spent a whole day just getting everything ready, and then it was actually the next day that I took everything up to Dave's. The weather has been kind of nice. It's really starting to warm up, and it was supposed to be cloudy all day, but not rainy. Well, I took my chances and stick around to find out if they paid off or not. And if this is your first time here, let me know what you think down in the comments, and make sure you subscribe. It's also fun that every time I have to work on this, well, you'll see I can sometimes work on it inside the truck, you'll see later. But pretty much every time I want to do something on this, I have to take it all the way out of the truck. Not the biggest deal in the world, but it's definitely not something that's easy to do. Okay, I'm pretty sure these blocks weigh 500 pounds, but that just might be a long block or a short block. Somebody let me know if I'm wrong on that. I can at least pick these up. I have a motorcycle that weighs 500 pounds, some videos coming on that soon. I have everything to make that run. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that in the future. I'm definitely going to be coming out soon, but today I'm worried about right now. I'm doing a lot of things today, but right now, check out these crank bearing surfaces here. I'm gonna go ahead and clean all of these up with a light bristle disc and make sure that we don't have anything weird going on. I do find some weird stuff. Actually, one of these squirters is broken from the previous video, but this one here actually looks like it's not in all the way, so I might just upgrade them all. That's not the only weird thing I find though, and I'm gonna do a little time lapse of getting this all bristle disced up and cleaned. Well, we'll just go ahead and do this quickly, and basically all the rust on there was pretty minimal. This has always been coated in oil, and it never really got wet underneath the motor. There was just a light surface rust, and in a couple of spots, maybe 2 spots, there was some dark rust, but you'll see me pull out a file in a minute because somebody really went to town on the front bearing surface. So I've got to make sure I check all of the lower caps on those as well and make sure there's nothing weird going on. But on the front one, I'll give you a closer look. That edge is definitely rolled over, and I'm gonna have to file that down to make sure that it doesn't push on that bearing, because it's definitely gonna wear that bearing out like that. So I'll just file it down past flat, you know, as flat as I can get it, but maybe a little bit extra if needed. So again, with a scraper, that bristle disc, sometimes if the rust is a little bit thicker, I'll just scrape it off. That bristle disc, everything else cleaned up other than this little nick. And again, it's little, so I'm okay filing that off. there's kind of that whole front edge where one of the gears obviously started to wear into the cover, and on the oil pump as well, there's some grinding, some material missing on the inside, but it's really the back surface that needs to be in good shape to seal up, and that's nice and flat, so I'm not too worried about that either. So again, I just checked all those corners after finishing up, and I'm not worried at all about that, but I'll talk to Dave maybe when I go and pick this stuff up and see what they think about checking the block out. But for right now, I'm only worried about this crank. Let's go ahead and look at this. The block's in good enough shape. All of these main surfaces on the crank look good, so it's definitely usable. That's why I think they can polish it up. But if you see the front here where that seal goes, it gets worn out a lot on these Cummins, on these 12 valves, and they actually make a sleeve replacement kit for it. Not only that, but you can see that pin holding the gear on is also kind of twisted a little. And the cam looks fine. It needs to be polished. We'll see what they say about that, but the crank's the only thing that's going to need a serious looking at. And here's those bearing caps. I still have to take a really close look at those. I got them cleaned up well, but you can see some of those alignment pins are missing, so I definitely have to order at least 5 of those. Maybe some studs too. Okay, now we'll take a look at these pistons, which are 1 millimeter oversized, which is 40 thousandths, and that's about as big as you can go on these Cummins. This block again is a little bit higher percentage of nickel in the cast, so it should be a little bit stronger, but if you go any wider than that, then the Cummins start to have issues, so no problems with that. That makes it like a 6.1959, like a 6.2 liter. It really will only give you like 10 horsepower extra. You'll barely be able to notice it. Anyways, I'm going to make sure I set all of these pistons up correctly, and then we'll do a time lapse doing all 6, because that's going to take a little bit less than an hour. And just trying to be careful with those. I'm going to use a bunch of assembly lube and make sure that I don't put any of them on backwards. But hey, at least they're not heat set ones where if you put them on backwards, you made a big mistake. I could just pop the clip ring out if I need to and then turn it around. But I'll get all these in the right direction, no problem. It took quite a while, like I said, to get all these together, a little bit less than an hour, and my biggest worry was just making sure they were straight. A couple of them were a little tighter than I probably would have wanted to get those wrist pins in, but I could just tap on them super lightly with a rubber mallet. If I had to tap on them any harder and they were binding up, then I would have had an issue. These connecting rods are brand new, made in Brazil, so I'm not sure where they're from or what kind of quality, if that's some sort of Cummins supplier or not. So let me know in the comments about that if you're aware if these Brazil rods are good or not. The guy that gave them to me said they were good. I don't know if he just meant that they were good new rods, but I don't care if they were used, if they were better quality. Let me know what you think about that. And if this is more than your first time here, make sure you're subscribed as well, especially if you know something like that. You could let me know in the comments. Also, something else I need to know before I get this thing built together is I'm pretty sure some Cummins have a thrust washer somewhere along the main crank itself, not just one of the bearings itself having like a thrust washer built in, but I think I saw one that kind of looked like a big C with a little tab on it. Let me know if I'm missing one of those. I'll do some research as well, so I might know by the time I publish this. Well, remember what I said about rain? It definitely didn't hold off. I gotta get this block inside. Here's what I did for the meantime. All right, well, now that I'm getting this block inside, I didn't do a time lapse of that. I just ran out and threw it in as fast as I could. I'm gonna go ahead and get all of these rings measured up, so I'm gonna have to clean these up real well. I'm sure you're already seeing that, but I'm gonna make sure the rings are gapped. I'll put them back in their bags for their cylinders. The pistons and the rods are new, so they're not gonna be assigned to a particular cylinder. I'm just gonna have those rings gapped to each cylinder, and it's a good thing I did that. You should always do that because of course they didn't all line up. And something else I did was I changed the size of the factory gap a little bit. In fact, I'm not sure if I changed the upper ring gap at all, because on half the cylinders 23 mil was dead on, and on the other ones I just gapped the top ring to that. The second ring was probably close to that, but on some of these diesels you get a lot better performance if you gap that second ring a lot bigger, like 10 to 20 mil bigger. So I did about 10 mil bigger and gapped that to 35 mil, and then with the oil ring I went back down to 23 mil and tried to keep it a little tight on that. This took quite a bit longer than just hooking those pistons up did. I just used one piston to push all those down straight, and you can see I have one of those nice little ring grinding tools that came in super handy and helps grind those rings nice and square. So a couple hours later, and the sprinkling's been on and off, I'm gonna go outside and do the front two that I can't quite reach, and then I'm gonna get all these oiled up. So you'll see me just putting oil all over these things. I got them all over the inside of these cylinders, all over the top, all over the bottom, and then I'm gonna get it covered up as well because I don't want this thing rusting up. I'll probably go ahead and hone it, just a quick hone one more time before I'm done, because those rings like to mark up the inside of the cylinders as much as you try and not. So run a hone right through those, but it's just a 220 grit. It's not gonna make anything bigger, and if it does, it would be consistent either way. But as long as that took, it's not something that's particularly hard. There are some things that I can't do, like polishing this cam or crank, or even having the understanding what to do with them. So let's go ahead and see what happens when I take these up to Dave's. All right, it's the next morning. I'm just gonna get everything ready to take up there, and you'll notice one of the themes of my dash cam is the rear camera likes to just not get footage of half the stuff that's going on. I don't know why. So anyways, you won't see me put the crank in here, but I tried to pick that up carefully without hurting my back. Sucker's heavy though. Let's head up to Dave's. All right, well, I'm on my way to Dave's. I think the only thing, well, right now I know the only thing I'm taking to him is the crank and the cam. Those are the only things that haven't been machined. The crank has some stuff going on with it, but they do make a repair kit for the one spot that's really worn out. So I mostly just need them both polished. And there's you know, some wear on the back where that seal was as well. I'm not sure if they make a kit for that, but it's probably not worn out enough to leak oil. I'm probably only like 10-15 minutes away. It's less than an hour away from me, so it was a no-brainer to take that stuff up there. But his schedule has been real busy, and they weren't able to do a collab or anything, so at least I just want them to take care of my stuff. I've got him back there in the back. Anyways, I'll update you when we get there. Just checking in, that's the plan for now. I've got the block back home, it cleaned up well, and I've got all the pistons and rings set up yesterday. So as soon as I get these back, I'm ready to start building that long block. The only thing I'll be missing then is a few things like underneath the crank. I need to replace that oil squirter. I don't have like the oil pickup tube and an oil pan even, so I've got to get like the rear main seal and all that stuff as well. One step at a time, let's make sure these are good to go. Dave's the guy to do it. All right, so I'm getting pretty close to Dave's, and honestly feeling a little nervous, especially because they said they couldn't do a collab. I hope they won't get upset or anything that I have some work for them to do. I just want to pay them for their work, and I don't know what I'm even afraid of. These are the nicest guys ever. I pulled in here, and they've got a couple of buildings. I've never been here, so I have no idea what I was looking at. They do have a sign. Dave, if you're watching this, you should update your entry sign because I didn't know where to go. But they did have a sign on the door to the left here that said go back to the building to the north. So on my way there, I met a nice mechanic. I'm sure he was a mechanic, one of Dave's employees. Everybody who works there is super nice. I asked him if I was heading in the right direction, and of course, he sent me in the right way. They're like a front office. Alright, just gotta find a parking spot. Love the place already. Can't wait to have a shop of my own like this one day. Alright, took a minute to find the front office, and I'm just gonna go in and talk to them, tell them I've got these things to polish and that they might need to look at that gear on the front of that crank. So let's see what they think. Okay, I'm waiting for him to open one of these machine shop doors. I didn't know before I came up here though that they don't do just machine shop work. They have a machine shop for like rebuilds and stuff. But I talked to 𝐕𝐿𝐴's son, who I had talked to before on the phone. He was really cool. He's like, hey, we'll do that for you, don't worry. But normally that's not something they do. And I didn't know that, so super cool guys, man. This is the place to go. All right, I've got this back here. Somebody should come help me grab this and then I'll be on my way. They said they'll get it turned around pretty quick too. All right, there we go. They opened that door for me, and I guess for real, they don't do this sort of stuff often because the guys inside were pretty confused what I was doing there. So I let them know what we talked about and how they could maybe check this crank out and polish up the crank in the cam, and they took a good look at it and told me they thought that was something they could for sure look into, especially on that crank. You know, they're gonna have to clean it up a little bit before they can even decide if polishing is worth it. They said the cam looked good though. There's a little bit of surface rust on that too though, you saw it. Well, let's hit the road. It's a little bit less than an hour to get back home. Actually, depending on the traffic, it could be a little bit quicker. I think I made it back in 45 minutes, and it was a little bit less than an hour on the way there. Well, if you made it this far, again, you gotta be subscribed. If you wanna help out with the Cummins build, you can donate at the links in the description down below. And if you wanna say what's up, make sure you leave a positive comment. I'll interact with those in the comments down below. Check out the next episode up here. I'll see you there. One step closer to getting this truck running. More like 5.